Do you want to generate leads? Is free your favorite price? Then you need to check out iyba.pro. iyba.pro is your industry-owned platform for all listings and marketing. Create robust yacht sales and charter profiles, elegant marketing material, have access to all your exclusive data, and enjoy premium search engine optimization by signing up with us. For more information on how to join iyba.pro, call the IYBA headquarters or email me at casey@iyba.org.
Maritime arbitration has been around for hundreds of years. Now we have a new forum to solve our disputes. The IYBA has created the International Yacht Arbitration Council to solve our disagreements. We have experienced maritime attorneys and yacht brokers to serve on our panels, people who know the law, who know boats, and who know the yacht business. IYAC arbitration can handle yacht claims, contract, purchase, and commission disputes privately, quickly, and less costly than going to court. Sometimes disputes happen, and when they do, the IYAC is here to help you solve them.
Hi, I'm Bob Saxon. I'm president of EBA, the International Yacht Brokers Association. What is EBA? Our mission statement suggests our worthy objective to be promoting professionalism and ethics amongst our members. But EBA is more than that. The work and the energies of our board of directors and our support committees is directed toward bettering the business environment within our constituency by way of education, networking, webinars, seminars, political engagement, and many other activities for the greater benefit of our membership. Our reach is impressive, with a global membership of over 1,600 strong, marking EBA as the largest and most influential professional association of yacht brokers and affiliates. If not a current member, I encourage your participation. If already an active EBA member, learn how you can serve in a board support capacity by becoming a committee member. I asked earlier, what is EBA? And in the final analysis, EBA is you, EBA is your cause. And I know that you're going to enjoy this week's EBA Yacht Engineering Webinar Week.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of Yacht Engineering Week. It's Wednesday, and we're in the field at Lauderdale Marine Center. For the first 2 days, I saw Heather having all the fun, and after 40 years in the business, I thought, you know what, that's the part I love the most, is being out there and engaging. So I thought I'd join Heather, and first thing I want to find out is, Heather, tell us, what did you learn over the last couple of days in your field expedition?
Sure. So I think I learned more about Caterpillar engines than I will ever need to know in my life going forward. I also learned about aftercoolers. The good news is I didn't have to change one, but the even better news is it didn't ruin my manicure.
Heather, you might have a new career in front of you if you're not careful.
I think so. But I also learned about internet on board and staying connected while you're at sea. And it's good to know that if I have the right equipment, I can be on Instagram no matter where I am in the world.
If you have the right equipment.
And only if.
There you go. So, good news is we've learned a lot of things. The better news is we've got a lot more to learn. Today we're at AME, Advanced Mechanical Enterprises. Everybody in the association who's been to one of our yacht engineering seminars knows Rich Merhige. Rich has been a great contributor and a great supporter to IYBA Yacht Engineering since the inception in 2015. Let's go inside, out of the hot sun, talk to Rich, and see what else we can learn today. Hey, Rich.
Hey, welcome.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Paul.
Rich, meet Heather.
Good morning.
Heather, welcome.
Nice
Welcome to Advanced Mechanical Enterprises.
Thanks so much.
Good to have Eva
Thanks
here.
so much. So everybody knows Rich. Rich has got a pretty long history in the industry, long as mine, I think, probably. But Rich, your start with all of this actually came from New York Maritime College.
New York Maritime.
You worked in engineering there. You got your degree,
Yes.
and then you chose to go out into the field, and you worked in engineering in the commercial end. Correct?
I worked in the commercial and the military. I was
Okay.
involved with both.
Okay.
And I wanted to come ashore, and the opportunity came up to start my own company back in 1992.
So was it primarily in design, or was it in analysis, or what area of the commercial side did you spend most of your time?
I've always been a guy that couldn't sit behind a desk.
Okay.
So even though I have an engineering background and degree, I've always been one that likes to be out in the field and get my hands dirty and roll up my sleeves and go to work.
Excellent. Well, we've had a number of great presentations from AME over the years. The first year that we had yacht engineering, we learned some very valuable lessons. We learned a bit about vibration. We also learned no math allowed for the yacht brokerage community.
Yeah,
So,
I think we're a little heavy on the math on that one.
not anymore, though.
I learned my lesson.
We put our slide rules away, and what we're going to do is we're going to see what AME does on a day-to-day basis. So, Rich, give us a little idea of what the facility is and what you do here. Maybe Heather can lead the way.
Thank you, Heather.
All right,
So
yeah.
we have a full-service machine shop here.
Okay.
We do hydraulics, we do welding, pipe fitting, and of course propulsion systems. And let's
Awesome.
go
Where
and
do you
see.
do all that?
Let's go see what we
I'd
do
love
here.
to see.
So this is we have a little machine area here, machining area. On this side, you'll see we have targets for
So what are
optical
what are these
alignment.
targets for? Is these
So
to put on the shaft?
these are all pre-machined targets to fit all the various bearing bores for shaft alignment. So we'll take a target here, for example, and we have a target that fits in this recess, and this will fit in the bearing, and then we use a precision optical telescope, which we'll show you later. I think I'm putting this in the right spot.
Hopefully
I think so.
So here we have our machinist, Danilo. He's been with me since I started the company.
Wow.
Cool.
Danilo did an apprenticeship, and he's a master machinist.
He started at a very young age then, obviously.
Yeah. He was a much younger man then. So this is Danilo. This is our. He's machining a stainless steel sleeve at the moment for
Okay.
a yacht.
All right.
Very cool.
And you see we have a milling machine and plenty of tools.
So over here you
And
can shape
watch
them,
your
and here in the
step here.
sandblaster you can clean them up.
This is where we sandblast, parts for rebuilding equipment.
Okay. Heather, you getting all this?
I am.
Good deal.
And then we go through here. And this is our welding and fabrication area. It's our two certified welders, Charlie and Augustine. And
Hey, guys.
So here we can do all welding processes. We can do TIG, MIG, stick welding. We do work with all kinds of metals, copper, nickel, aluminum, steel, of course. And at the moment, he's fabricating a rigging structure to pull the engines out of a yacht.
Okay. So you're
Wow.
building
So-
an A-frame.
Excuse me,
Building
Paul?
an A-frame.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Building an A-frame, exactly.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Well, how about you show us your office?
So yeah, we'll go. This is our office. We have a mezzanine office. We were the first ones at Lauderdale Marine Center to come up with this concept.
I love it.
Yep.
Great idea.
And
some good
if you
engineering.
look in here, this is our area where we do hydraulic. We'll do more precision work in this area. We have all the guys have their toolboxes in here, and it's a nice little work area for the guys. This we have a 100-ton press here that we use for
Press bearings in the
for
sleeves.
making parts or pressing in parts.
Wow.
Okay.
And then of course more tools and safety cabinets, and we're very safety conscious. These are our
course.
rigging and lifting gear. And here we go.
Okay, thank you.
After you, ladies first.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. All right, let's come in. So here we are in the office,
Oh, the air
and it's
conditioning.
Nice air
nice
conditioning.
and cool and air conditioned.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And we also do, as Paul mentioned earlier, we do vibration analysis. And we do precision laser alignment. This tool cage has all our lasers and high value equipment in where we store it in the air conditioned area.
So going back to the beginning just a little bit, Rich, your area is in engineering, and through analysis and design, you decided that you felt there was an opportunity to build a company doing the analysis of vibration and what causes it, where does it come from, and then, if I'm not mistaken, what you told us was that you also decided you could implement the solutions to those problems as well.
Correct.
Something you mentioned to me earlier was basically there's a simple Bible for illustrating your vibration diagnostics.
Exactly. By analyzing the frequency, the amplitude, and the direction of the vibrations, we can pinpoint exactly what the problem is.
So you can tell if it's an air conditioning compressor, or if you can tell if it's a motor mount or a shaft that's out of line.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's a much more efficient way. You know, you've heard the stories where guys have not known what a vibration, and they're chasing this thing down and chasing it down, and it spends all kinds of money. And what we're trying to use is science and data.
Well, I had the pleasure of running boats for several years before I became a broker, and I can completely relate to trying to chase a problem, especially when it's something as nuanced as vibration is.
Right.
I know of a situation where on a boat that I ran, there was a large board mounted in the forward portion of the engine room over a fuel tank, and that was where the high pressure pump for the freshwater system was mounted.
Sure.
And when they built the boat, they used a hard point mount. And I finally realized that when that pump kicked on was when we had this weird noise on the boat, so we put a softer mount on there, solved the problem.
See,
I probably should have called you. We would have learned a lot sooner.
We started doing this back in 1992, and back then there really wasn't a lot of people with this technology. The vibration analyzing equipment was really only came about with the invention of the microprocessor. So it was fairly new technology, and it's really taken off. I mean, it's become more commonplace now. I remember when I first started, I was talking to people about vibration and laser alignment. They're looking like I had three heads. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Now everybody pretty much, it's anybody in the industry actually knows what this is all about.
Well, lasers have become so well adopted that when you want to put a piece of drywall up on a wall, you use a laser pointer.
Right.
It's a different deal, but it's similar. It's a straight, true line.
A laser produces, one of the reasons we use lasers for alignment is a laser produces a perfectly straight line for a reference. So that's what we're doing. Now there's a new technology that we've just purchased.
Okay.
And it's using high-speed video camera, and then the software in the video software will do what's called motion amplification. So here we have an engine supports from a 74-foot sport fish.
Okay.
And the owner was complaining about vibration.
That's a lot of vibration.
We went out there with this tool, and what's beautiful about this technology is you can actually show the customer the problem. It's not a guess. It's an actual, you can actually see what's happening.
We know that brings up an interesting point, especially you're talking about a 74-foot custom-built sport fishing boat. That's one of the nuances of our business that's so different from other places. When they build an automobile, they build several hundred thousand
mass
of the
production.
same model. They do all of the engineering, they do all of the testing, and then they just replicate it time and time again.
Right.
But in our industry, virtually everything is custom built.
Right.
Even a 34-foot Sea Ray, while it's done to the same standard, each one is built quite a lot by hand. When we get into the bigger sport fishing boats, and especially in the motor yachts, we've got different design applications and different engineering considerations on every single one of them.
Exactly.
So what you're showing us here in the engine room of this sport fish boat looks to me like you guys have identified a lot of engine movement there. What do you think was causing that when you first looked at it?
So what's happening there is the engine bracket is quite a long arm extending down to the rubber mount. Well, what that's doing is it's creating a moment, a lever, and it's putting a lot of stress on that bracket. So what we have done, and what we'll show you later, we'll go out to the boat and look at, is that we've put in entirely new stringer caps. They were solidly bonded to the hull, and we've built up a tower off the stringer cap, which has now shortened the height of that lever and the engine mount. on the bottom there is now right where it should be, right under the motor bracket.
So what you're saying is this creates a lever, and this is what's isolating the vibration, and we want the isolated of the vibration to be at the top of the mount, closer to the engine.
It's twisting the mount.
So
and
this
it's
actually
twisting the bracket.
amplifies the vibration as opposed to reducing it.
Exactly. Very good, Paul.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Makes
that's,
sense.
That's where we're at.
It looks to me like your molars would be rattling on a head C on that one.
Yeah, it was bad. So this vibration was so bad, it actually, with the boat had very low hours, the transmission seals had already failed.
Really?
And they had cutlass bearing problems, and you know, the owner was not very comfortable in his beautiful, you know, sport fish, and it takes away from the pleasure of it. You know, when you have vibration, it's kind of needles at you. So he was very happy that we were able to identify and that we're fixing the problem.
Well, and it significantly increases the amount of maintenance that needs to be done to other things.
Absolutely.
It's like driving your car down a dirt road all the time.
Yeah.
Things are going to come apart a lot more quickly.
Right, and there's two issues with vibration. There's the one of comfort, but you also got the one where, you know, vibration causes machinery failures.
And then it becomes a safety issue.
Yeah, exactly. So you address both of those.
See, we can't communicate to Instagram and upload if we're floating around out there. The only thing we can do is call for help.
That's right.
Okay.
But, you know, we're really excited about this technology because, again, it's always, you know, to show the layman about vibration, you know, with the charts and the squiggly lines, it gets a bit confusing. But when you can actually see it with your eyes, it's a much better explanation and understanding.
So when you can see it with your eyes, that makes a ton of sense. But as you mentioned a few minutes ago when we were looking at the vibration diagnostic chart, you said that different frequencies can help you identify where different vibrations may reside. So how does this tell you? Does this tell you what the frequency is, or do you have different equipment to measure frequencies?
So the beauty of this technology, and we're not showing it in this particular screenshot, but we can pick a point anywhere on the screen and we can convert that to a frequency measurement with a spectrum plot.
Wait a minute, you're not bringing math back into
I'm
it, are
trying
you?
not to. You keep pushing me there.
So you can pinpoint, and you can pinpoint a specific place, and you can analyze the movement in that specific place. And through an algorithm, you can determine exactly the frequency that's being emitted there.
See, you're getting this.
I'm starting to
Those
get
mathematical talks must have been sinking in.
5 years, it's all it took.
Well, gentlemen, this is all great, but like you said, visual learners like myself, I want to see it. So let's go check out the boat.
The tagline for this is "Seeing is believing."
Absolutely.
Well, I'm a believer, so let's go see.
Let's
All
go.
right, let's go out to one of the yachts in the back here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you.
Now let's go live.
I'll follow you, Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heather, you've had all the fun for the first couple of days, but this is really interesting.
This is. I'm glad you're getting to join in on the fun.
Well, the neat thing is this gives you a better understanding as a broker or as any marine professional.
Of course.
When we're having issues with a boat, you can be a better rounded professional if you can explain
So here
to
we
the
have-
owner of the boat the origins of the problem.
I
If you
believe
just-
it's a 50-meter yacht that
50
we're, so one of the things in the yachting industry, in the commercial and yachting industry, is the vessels are built to classification standards. It's basically the building codes for boats. So we have here is a yacht that was built by ABS. It's to ABS standards, and every 5 years they go through what's called their survey cycle. It's a 5-year cycle. So the 10-year and the 20 years are both major cycles. This particular vessel is in its 10-year cycle. So we're pulling all the sea valves, we're checking the rudders, and we're also checking the propulsion system. So all that is being performed on this yacht.
So when you mentioned a little while ago that you can do all the different types of metal welding in-house, that means that you guys are certified to be able to do specific weld standards so that you meet with class, correct?
Correct.
So that
exactly.
if you bring a boat in to have work done on under a class survey, you can attest to the fact that the work has been done to a specific standard and it qualifies to stay within class.
Yes, the welders to weld on anything to do with the vessel. Now this is a composite vessel, fiberglass, but there's all the piping systems and things like that, and those systems, those are metal, and of course you have to be certified to be able to work on that equipment.
Excellent. Okay. After you, Heather.
Thank you.
So here we have the rudders that we dropped. We're taking the propellers off to get scanned, and we're checking the bearings in the cutlass bearings.
So you're checking your drive line to make sure that there's no misalignments, making sure that there's no vibration emanating from this area.
Correct.
Which is one of the most common
Correct.
issues, isn't it?
Yes.
A grounding
Yes.
or simply a settling of an engine will cause it to go out of a line.
Exactly. The engine mounts typically and torsional couplings have a 10-year life because they're made out of rubber.
Okay.
And the rubber parts, they'll have wear. They only last about 10 years and then they start to dry rot. They become hard and they lose their elasticity. So that's why this work needs to be done. It's standard maintenance.
Okay.
10 years is a kind of a magic number in the life of a yacht.
Okay. It's time for big work at 10 years.
You see that's exhaust systems right there. They have the stabilizer fins.
So fin type stabilizers is a topic we're going to cover a little bit later in the day.
Right.
We'll be talking to Quantum about that.
Yep.
And
They're one of the top companies in the business.
Yeah, they are. They're very good. So the boat that we're going to go look at is out here in the yard area, correct?
Yeah, we're going to look at another boat over here in the yard.
This is the Sportfish boat that you had the video of.
This is the Sportfish, exactly.
Okay. All right, great.
So we're going to go walk over there and see that.
Well, our weather seems to be holding up for us. We're fortunate in that. Whoa, we've managed to get away with no wardrobe malfunctions, but I think we might have had a cameraman malfunction there. Everything okay? Looks like we're doing good.
All
okay.
good.
So out here in the field, one of the really cool things is the opportunity to see the boat that we were talking about on video before. Now, one of the things that we know is that, especially in the sport fishing market, with the custom boats, every one is built to a different standard. It's built to a different utility. It's built to a different person's specifications.
Exactly.
So the engineering has to be really difficult in something like this.
It's very challenging to do the engineering on every vessel, so
because everyone is bespoke.
everyone is different, right? It's unique.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first boat that this builder used a different type of engines in. Is that not correct?
Correct. And that's where things got a little sideways. They had a little bit of a vibration.
Okay.
And it had to do with the builder not being used to that particular model of engine.
Okay.
And that engine having a different footprint.
So when we're talking about identifying vibration in the drive line, the place where we start is going to be with targeting the shaft, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what is targeting a shaft? When you say that, can you explain a little bit more what that means?
So targeting a shaft, you'll see here, one of our engineers, Tony, has set up an optical alignment borescope. It's one of the methods we use to do alignment. And
so those are the bushings that you showed us in the shop earlier that hold the target in the end of the
correct.
strut.
Those bushings hold those targets. They're precisely in the center of the shaft and in the strut. So what we do is the optical scope, the optical scope is set up on a target line to the forward and aft stern tubes, because that is a fixed structural point in the hull. The stern tube is glassed in and it's not moving.
Theoretically, it's in the right place.
Right. Theoretically, it's in the right place.
Okay.
And most builders get that right.
Okay.
So now what we're doing is we precision align the engine on the forward end,
Okay.
and we precision align the strut on the aft end.
So that everything lines up with the laser.
Perfectly
which
straight.
There's absolutely no deflection in a laser light.
Correct. In
That's
this
why
case,
they
we're
call it
using
target.
optics.
Okay.
We have lasers, but in this case, we used optics, light optics.
Okay.
So we have targets with the scope. The scope is calibrated. It has you can actually precisely measure how much off the line you are by the crosshairs in the scope.
Okay.
Similar to a rifle scope.
Okay.
So you're looking through the targets, and what we did in this case is we dropped both struts, and they were originally bedded in with 5200.
But isn't 5200 the best stuff there is? It's super strong. The strut's never going to
5200
go
is
anywhere.
amazing, but
Just
it's
don't get it on
elastic.
ya.
It's like rubber. So we don't want a rubber strut. We want it solid.
So you had movement in the strut.
Yes,
by
we had
inherently
movement,
from the
yes.
mounting of 5200.
Correct. And all these
Okay.
things start stacking up and creating vibration. It's
okay.
all about the details.
Okay.
Every little thing matters. The shaft being straight, the strut being fixed, the engine being in the correct place, the engine mounts all being properly supported. All those little things matter.
So how do you float this strut back in once you've eliminated all the 5200 and gotten all of the alignment correct?
So the way we float it in is we drop the strut, we hang the strut with threaded rod, and then we have jack screws, and we manipulate the strut with the combination of the jack screws and the threaded rod, and we set the gap to precisely being in line with the stern tube.
Do you use washers or something like that to make up that difference? What do you use to
So once we've established the position, we lock the jacking screws in position, we drop the strut, we use an epoxy bedding compound. In this case, we used West System epoxy.
Okay.
And we epoxied the strut flange to the hull. Then we pushed it back up and to the position that was pre-aligned with the jack screws, and we tighten everything up and wait for it to cure.
Okay, so now we have a strut that's mounted properly and aligned perfectly with the stern tube. So now we have 2 points that are in a straight line.
Correct.
What do we do after that?
So after that, then what we do is once we got the strut and everything in position, we also precision align the engine. And as I spoke in the past with EVA, the engine mounts are very critical, and the weight balance on them has to be precise. So we level and balance out the weight on the engine mounts, and according to the manufacturer's specifications for the deflection. And then, pardon, a little windy here.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we align it with the adjusters on the mounts and shim it.
So, but back here on the strut, once we've epoxied it in place, are we finished or is there another step?
Once we've epoxied it into place, then we have the gentleman next door here. If you want to walk around here and see it. Okay. So
It's like these guys have just finished up.
They've just finished up, but the fiberglass guys will come in here, and then what they'll do is they'll seal under the strut.
So they'll seal it and fair it so that there's no disturbance in the water flow.
Right.
Because
So
that has a lot to do with performance, and it can develop cavitation if there's a disturbance there as well. Cavitation's a story for another day.
right, right. That's another vibration source.
Okay.
But as you can see, it's going to be sealed in, and then they're going to sand it down with a longboard and get it nice and faired in, so the water flow is laminar.
Okay.
And again, performance issues. That water flow, as you know, matters.
Of course.
That's the big push with sport fishing boats, especially,
Yeah.
is high performance, and we got to eliminate every bit of drag possible in order
Right.
to achieve that.
As
Speaking
you can
of
imagine.
performance, let's go check out the engine
You
room.
want to go see the engine room?
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
There we go.
Guys, lead the way and watch your step.
All right.
All right.
Okay. I'll go
Shall we?
first.
Absolutely.
Oh.
After you, Heather.
Okay, thank you.
Rich, I'll go in and let you bring up the rear.
Thank you.
Heather, the old adage is 2 hands on the ship, 1 is always for the ship. Steady yourself to keep from falling.
That's good to know. Thank you.
So this is the solution to the challenge that was identified earlier in our video.
Correct.
So tell us what we did here. It looks like we've got new stringer caps, new engine beds, new mount towers, the whole enchilada.
Yes, yes. We're really excited to see this boat run.
I'm
so,
sure.
you know, as you can see, this is all, so the stringer caps here
Okay.
were removed, and we rebedded those in.
Okay.
And we fabricated 2 new supports for the engines.
Okay.
And we made new engine bracket for the gear side.
Okay.
And we've got new engine mounts installed as well.
So now we have a rigid, fixed plane to operate from, and the only thing in here that isn't perfectly rigid is the elastomeric mount that the engine vibration is normally accommodated for, a regular engine mount.
Yeah.
And now it's in the right position.
Exactly. And to work correctly, the mount, you can't have both parts moving. Something's got to be solid.
Okay.
So this is obviously absorbing vibration, and this part is on a rigid, solid structure to the hull.
Okay.
So we're really, you know, we're confident this is going to be run. As you saw in the video earlier today, there was a lot of motion here, and that is all going to be gone.
Okay. Now the diesel engine, by nature of how it runs, inherently there's going to be a little bit of movement, but that will be taken care of with the mounts themselves. But now we have a fixed place to mount those mounts that's not going to exacerbate the movement.
Yes.
Or accentuate it.
I mean, just a little quickie about how the mounts work. The mounts have a lower natural frequency than, now tell me if I'm getting heavy on the math here.
No, we're doing okay math-wise so far. No slide rules. We're
what
good.
happens is it converts the high frequency vibrations created by the engine become a very low frequency in the mount, and the mount moves, but you can't see it with your eye, and it absorbs the vibration and turns it into heat energy. So it takes vibration energy and turns it into heat energy. That's why it's important that on rubber engine mounts that they don't get too hot. If they get too hot, they won't function as well because they're converting all that vibration energy from the engine into heat energy off the mount.
So when we go back to do the analysis after the solution has been proposed, what we'll do is we'll identify with cameras and targets the vibration of the engine and the lack of vibration in the mount to solve the problem.
That's exactly right.
You get all that, Heather?
I think so. I've really been a sponge throughout this whole week, just absorbing all the information I'm learning.
Yeah,
Love
there's
it.
a lot of
It makes a huge
information.
difference to get your hands on and actually see what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Instead of a PowerPoint presentation or a slideshow. This makes all the difference in the world. Rich, thanks so much. It looks like you guys have done a spectacular job in here. I've spent a lot of time in custom sport fish engine rooms, and this is an elegant application.
Yes.
No doubt
yes,
about it.
It's been a good project, and we're excited to get it all wrapped up. We got to put the exhaust back on and detail the engine room, but you know we're in the final stages of it.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Well, thanks so much for the time in here.
You'll have to join me on a sea trial one day.
I'd love to. I'd love to. Let's go on up. It's a little cooler outside, actually. Heather, I'll let you lead.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Rich, I think we've had a really incredible engagement here. We've learned a lot about vibration, the analysis, what can cause the problems, and what do we do about it? Nobody would know if you weren't deeply engaged in the industry, the technology that's utilized to be able to identify these things. And I guess a lot of that comes from the space age.
Yeah, well, also the U.S. Navy nuclear submarine fleet was very leading edge on this stuff, as you can imagine.
Well, you were on the Nautilus, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I've been on a few submarines, but not the Nautilus.
Okay. Well, this has really been interesting, Rich. I know you've got a couple of other things that you need to do. Heather, do you have any questions that you need to end up with, or are we in good shape?
I think we're in good shape. I think it's time to go take a tour of LMC.
That sounds like fun. Let's go do that.
Yes, thank you again,
Well,
Rich.
Thanks again
Been a
very much.
pleasure.
Social distancing and
I'm-
appropriate.
it's good to see you guys, and glad everybody's healthy and well.
Well, thanks so much for your educational input and your support. We really appreciate it.
Take
Heather,
care.
I'll let
guys
you
be,
lead the way again.
Be good and cheers.
Thanks again.
Thank
Bye.
you.
There you go. Thank you, Cap. Have a great day.
Wow, another very informative day. That was a lot of great information.
Heather, I got to tell you something. I think that was so interesting. You know, Rich and Christine have been great supporters of the Yacht Engineering Seminar since the very first one that we did in 2015.
Wow.
And while Rich has given us a lot of really interesting presentations, I think this one really strikes home more because you're actually able to get hands-on and see the applications of the technologies that they use.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people are more of hands-on learners. I know I'm that way myself, so I'm sure this is
Absolutely.
very helpful
I think
to our viewers. A little windy out here today.
it is a little breezy. So we've, I think probably our best option from here is to divide and conquer.
All right.
I know you've had a lot of fun this week with several different presenters.
Yes.
I'm going to go talk to Karen Lynn and learn a little bit more about lighting.
Okay.
What's next on your agenda?
I think I'm going to go take a tour of LMC with Doug.
Awesome.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
We'll catch up later.
I'll look forward to it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You know, living in this area, I've been to the restaurant called
More
Yacht
cameraman
a few times. It's
malfunctions.
right over here, but I've never actually been in the working shipyard here at LMC, so it's so cool to see the behind the scenes. And right now,
Hi, Heather.
Doug is going to give me a tour of this beautiful facility. So hello, Doug, and say hello to our viewers.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
All right, I'm going to hop on back here. We're being socially distant and following all protocols. Right, Doug?
Right.
We're going to cut to commercial break really quick. We'll be right back.
Hey, guys.
Hi, I'm Bob Allen, and I work with a law firm known as Robert Allen Law. We're a law firm dedicated to serving the needs of people in the yacht industry. And that means manufacturers, that means brokers, that means buyers, that means sellers, that means banks, that means people who sell all sorts of things and services to the yacht industry. We're a team of lawyers that has experience in virtually all the fields surrounding this business. And if you're in the business, you know how important it is to work with lawyers who know yachts, right? And know the type of problems that arise and know how to solve them. Our job as lawyers is to help deals get done. Thanks for the opportunity to be of service to the industry, and we look forward to hearing from you if the need arises.
Seakeeper has changed the resale values of our boats by the fact that if there's one in it, it definitely sells faster than one without it.
A boat today, the same model without Seakeeper, it's extremely penalized on the used boat market.
So Doug, where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Dallas.
Oh wow, okay. So how did you get to Fort Lauderdale?
Well, back in the early 90s, I went to work for Blockbuster, and I moved into the corporate office here in Fort Lauderdale, and stayed until we sold to Viacom, and then I moved over to AutoNation, still here in Fort Lauderdale.
Mm-hmm.
And then with AutoNation, we needed to open stores in Texas, so they moved me out there to open all the stores in Texas. And then after about 3 years, some guys that I worked with at Blockbuster and at AutoNation did a new startup company called Car Spa, and we were based here in Fort Lauderdale. So I moved back to Fort Lauderdale then, and then that was in about 2000, and then in 2006, I was called by the Huizinga family after they bought Arbitration up in West Palm Beach, and they asked me to come run that for them. So I did that from 2006 to 2015, and I moved down here in 2015 right after the Carlyle Group purchased LMC.
Wow, sounds like you have quite the experience. So how did you get up to be president of LMC?
Well, that's what they hired me to do here.
Okay.
Just because of my experience. I was the president of Arbitration.
Of course.
Before here, so they liked some of the things that we had done at Rybovich with the customer experience, and they asked me to come try to do some of that stuff here.
Yeah, that's awesome. This seems like a huge facility. How large is it actually?
So it's 60 acres total. We have 206 spaces for boats between in water and out of water.
Okay.
And of those 206, about half of them are for boats under 100 feet, and half are for boats over 100 feet.
Wow. How many boats do you think you see in a calendar year?
We get about 1,600 total visits a year.
Oh wow! So how many is that a day? That's a lot.
No, that's 1,600 over the course of the year.
Right.
And it's been increasing every year since about 2017.
Wow. So that's about 10 a day in season then, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then of that 1,600, we haul about 1,300 of those boats.
Oh wow. Okay. So I know the big news on the town is the new parking lot here at LMC.
Yes,
is that right?
That is huge news. We opened that parking lot about 4 months ago, and those people that have spent time in LMC know that parking has always been an issue. So we added a little over 200 new spaces. So it just makes it a lot easier for the contractors that do work here, for the vessel crew, and for the visitors that come in to do business here, whether brokers or builders or other service providers.
Sure, I'm sure the brokers will be happy to hear that.
Yes, we can accommodate all the brokers now.
So, do you have any plans for the future? I know that's the most recent thing that's happened, but anything up and coming?
Well, what we're finishing up right now with reconfiguring some of our office space. On site, we have about 200,000 square feet of workshop space and offices that we rent out to the contractors and to other service providers. So we're reconfiguring some of the office space now. That'll be complete by the end of this month, and then the final project will be to reconfigure some workshop spaces.
Okay.
And, that's going to be complete by the fourth quarter.
Great. So I hear a lot about this FTZ. Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, FTZ is it's the initial stand for Foreign Trade Zone, and what that is, it's most of the boats that are sold in this facility are foreign flag vessels. So
What does that mean?
That means they're registered in a different country, not in the United States. So for a foreign flag vessel to be sold or shown for sale in the United States, it has to be done at a boat show with a boat show bond. Well, the foreign trade zone allows for those boats to be shown to U.S. citizens right here in U.S. waters, because technically a foreign trade zone is a foreign country.
Right.
So that the whole facility is authorized to be a foreign trade zone, and we add and subtract slips based on the demand. I think we have 12 vessels here today that are in foreign trade zone. It actually, the foreign trade zone, you can also close the sail while the boat's in the foreign trade zone. You don't have to go offshore.
Oh wow,
like you normally would have to.
Wow. Now I know there's some limitations on that, right? Like only crew are allowed on the boat and that sort of thing?
Right. So when a boat's in foreign trade zone, it's not allowed for recreational use.
I see.
Only for exhibition or to perform work or to perform sea trials. So can't have guests on board. You can't. The owner of the boat can't use it while it's in the foreign trade zone. It's strictly for exhibition purposes.
Okay. And I see you have a lot of warehouse space as well. Can you tell me about some of your tenants that stay in there?
Yeah, well, our most recent big tenant is Ferretti. They rent about 30,000 square feet from us.
Okay.
They've launched their U.S. service division right here at Lauderdale Marine Center. We also have Benetti as a tenant, and we have Choi Lee as a tenant, and then we have 23 contractors on site that rent warehouse space from us. And then we have another 7 tenants that are service providers. We have brokerage companies like Northrop & Johnson is here, the Catamaran Company is here, and Super Yacht Sales and Charter is here. And then we also have a naval architect on site. We have BWA, the yacht agent is on site. So a good mix of tenants to be able to provide the services that the boats need.
Sure. Now is this the new parking lot?
This is our new parking lot.
Wow. How many spaces did you say this was?
Just over 200.
Wow, that's great. Looks like it was well needed.
Yes, you see the number of cars that are in there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, now one question I had, I forgot to ask you when we were passing it, but the boat lift, how big of a boat can those lifts actually lift?
So we have 5 lifts. We have a 75-ton, a 100-ton, a 145-ton, a 220-ton, and our biggest one is a 485-ton.
Wow.
So the 485 can comfortably haul a 50-meter vessel, 160 feet roughly. So we have one that's hauled out right now that's 185 feet, an aluminum boat.
Wow, that's incredible. I always wondered how they transfer these huge vessels from sea to land, and now I know. It was pretty cool to see. I got to see one coming out of the water earlier. That was really neat. So now we're coming back around the office spaces and near Yacht Bar, is that correct?
That's right. Yacht was a new addition about a year ago. We wanted to have amenities for crew members and for a lot of the service providers that come and visit here. All we had before was a food truck and not a great place to do business. So Yacht gives us the ability to have people in a nice casual setting where they can get out of the heat and sit down and have either a relaxing meal or conduct business.
Sure.
But it's just a nice amenity that we were lacking before.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful atmosphere for sure. What else could you ask for? Well, that was a great tour. Thank you for that. But
welcome.
it is a hot one out here. I say let's go get in the shade under the yacht bar.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go.
Marine Professionals MPI has been in business since 1997. With over 20 years of experience, we at MPI provide you the very best in marine electronics, audio, video, and networking. We specialize in boats from 40 to 120 feet. If you need navigation, including Garmin, Raymarine, or any other top brands, MPI is your go-to source. If you need audio video equipment, MPI can provide you with HD TV and the very best sound with a Sonos Hi-Fi sound system. MPI is the only marine gold Sonos dealer in the country. Nowadays, everybody wants high-speed internet. MPI can offer you different solutions that fit your needs. Whether it's to pick up the marina Wi-Fi, cellular, or satellite, MPI has you covered. We'll make sure you can binge watch your favorite Netflix episodes anywhere, anytime you want. You can check us out online at marineprofessionals.com or call us today. I'm Mark Carreri, and I approve this message.
Do you want to generate leads? Is free your favorite price? Then you need to check out iyba.pro. iyba.pro is your industry-owned platform for all listings and marketing. Create robust yacht sales and charter profiles, elegant marketing material, have access to all your exclusive data, and enjoy premium search engine optimization by signing up with us. For more information on how to join iyba.pro, call the IYBA headquarters or email me at casey@iyba.org.
So we've been over at the shipyard and looked at a lot of different boats and seen a lot of different aspects of the boats through the course of the day so far. But we figured we'd take the opportunity to come over to Apollo Lighting because we have the ability to look at all the different types of lights that are available. This segment's going to speak specifically to light conversions and what we can specify in new products. We're here today, or for this segment at least, with Karen Poulos from Lynn Interiors and also from Brandi Porter from Apollo Lighting. So what we want to talk about today, ladies, is more in regard to two different things, actually. We can talk about retrofitting boats that have old lighting systems in them, because that's an important component, but also maybe some of the specified applications that we want to use in new boats as well. So Karen, primarily what you do is you look to the design aspects and how lighting is going to affect the way the interior of the boat looks and the utility of the boat for the people. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So what are some of the most important considerations that you will take into account when you're designing a lighting scheme for a boat?
Well, it depends, Paul, if that's going to be a refit or new construction. So I kind of approach those two kind of projects in a different way. So for a retrofit, you would go into the boat and look at the existing system in the boat, the type of construction of the overhead, whether that's a stretch whisper wall type system, an upholstered panel system, or a hard paneled system.
Okay.
You would see the diameter of the existing cans, what kind of electrical supply they have in there, what is the owner or the captain looking to do with the system. Is he looking just to try to replace the bulbage and do kind of the minimal required, or are they looking to do a bigger project, which would involve the headliner as a aspect of the interior changes. So if the headliner is just one component, then it may involve redesigning all of the lighting and the headliner And of course, this is a different.
So it just depends upon how far he wants to go with the project.
Exactly.
He or she wants to go.
Exactly.
So if they want to do a complete redesign, or if they're thinking about just trying to utilize some of the components that are there and update them to a more modern program.
Exactly.
Okay. So what's one of the biggest benefits of going over to LED, for example? That seems to be the thing today. Why would we go to LED instead of having halogen?
Well, LED, first of all, is much cooler than your halogen fixtures.
So physically, temperature-wise.
Yes.
Okay.
So your air conditioning systems on board are not working as hard. Your generators are not pulling out as much power.
Okay.
And also there's a less chance of fire on board the boat.
So it's safer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. And then also the bulb replacement, LED fixtures or the bulbs themselves last longer. Halogen bulbs in the past have been very expensive.
Sure.
You have to replace them constantly. LED bulbs, I believe, are six years. Sometimes you can get out of them.
50,000 hours.
Yeah,
So
depending
that's leaving them on all the time.
Yeah. So there's an initial cost in the upfront of doing an LED conversion, but over time, with all these different factors, it actually is a savings. Because if you're not spending money on bulbage, you're saving money on generators, AC. You know, you're not having to replace the AC as much because the boat is staying cooler. Overall, it's going to be a savings.
Okay.
It's more energy efficient.
You also don't have to have a shelf full of bulbs just to be able to keep the lights on in your boat.
Exactly.
So when you're considering the utility, you're considering temperature, functional temperature of the fixtures. Mm-hmm. You're also trying to consider what mood you're creating in the boat. Is that correct? I mean, what sort of things would you take into consideration in that regard?
So I always like to look at the different types of lighting that are in the boat. Typically you have your cans, you have your rope lighting, you have your courtesy lights, which are usually on your stairs. You have some sort of lamps, decorative accent lighting we call it, your flush mounts or your dining room fixture. Sometimes in some of the bigger boats you'll get flush mounts in some of the cabins and the lower deck foyers. You can have that type of fixture. You can also have sconce lighting. Okay. You can have reading lights. Okay. So there's like 6 or 7 different types of interior light fixtures that we use typically on board. And so I like to kind of see what is the look that we're going for as far as, are we going to be doing a major retrofit, or are we going to go in and just kind of use the existing placement and just replace the fixtures? Okay. So we look at that. We look at the location of the controls. So for example, at the aft deck door, typically you might have a panel that's controlling all of the lighting in the salon, and then maybe at the main deck foyer, you would also have that same switching that's controlling the salon. So that's what they call a two-way switching. So you have 2 locations to switch the same set of lighting.
So that's a consideration in what you're going to choose as well.
Yes, and how it's going to be switched. So for example, as well, like if you have a lamp in the salon, most of the time we're hardwiring that lamp through the piece of furniture. So if the person is sitting on the sofa and they want to lean over and switch that lamp on and off by hand, then of course that's not going to be integrated into the actual VMAR, Crestron, Lutron, or Savant system. The cans, the rope lighting, the sconce lighting, the anything that's wired into the headliner typically would be something that's done on the circuitry of the VMAR and the switching controls at the aft or at the main deck foyer. And I'm just using that as an example.
So those sort of components will be decisions on the engineering side as to, after you've done your design plan and you've worked with the owner to determine what it is that you want to highlight, accentuate, or soften, you'll bring that to Apollo, and Brandi and her team will work on the engineering components of that, correct?
Well, what I like to do is either meet with the owner or the captain or the decision maker. Sometimes the owner just tells me to work with the captain or the engineer, and we do an actual physical walkthrough. And we actually take a plan, a layout of the boat, and locate, okay, where are we going to put the switching? If there's not switching already there, and we're going to add it in, or we're going to add outlets, we're going to add iPad, docking stations or whatever. We put it all on a paper plan, and then we actually draw it in AutoCAD. Okay. And then we would take that and give that to Apollo. Okay. And then they would take that and price that out. Okay, so they'll make the application as to the fixtures and all the rest of it. Something I'd like to step to before we go over into the engineering side of it is, when you walk on board the boat, and let's say we're just going to upgrade the lighting in the boat,
I hear talk about temperature and color. How do you consider what colors or temperatures of light you want to use, especially in relation to like the interior components and if it's wood or if it's more modern? Are these all things that you have to think about when you're designing your light schemes?
Yes, absolutely. So typically on many boats, you have a beautiful wood going through out at some level, shape, or form. So warm LEDs, warm rope lighting typically is the way that I go. Even in the galley, where you have more of a utilitarian area, you can go with a higher or a more powerful fixture, but still you want to stay in that warm family. Very rarely do I personally use the cooler LEDs. I find that they tend to give off that real clinical or hospital type setting, almost like what you would see in an emergency room or something like that. And it's not becoming, it's not flattering to all of the materials and the food, even if you were to put it in the galley. I mean, it's not something that I use very often.
The last thing we want to think of when we walk in the boat is that we've just entered the emergency room. There's no doubt about it. I think there's a panel over here on the wall that has a few of the different colored lights. Could we take a look at that and maybe get an example?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So Brandi's going to be our switch consultant here. So here we get 3 different colors of light. Is that what you call these as colors, right? Or temperatures?
Temperature, yes.
Maybe you can explain to us what those temperatures or colors are, Brandi.
Certainly. So we have warm white, which is what Karen was mentioning that she typically goes with. And then the extreme side, other side of it would be a cool white, which is kind of that hospitarian or
more clinical looking?
More clinical looking. And then there is a neutral that I say recently, within the last couple of years, more and more manufacturers are coming out with it because people more are leaning towards the cooler side of it, but they don't want that stark in your face, and it kind of is a happy medium in between the warm and the cool.
So it has a little more modern feel.
Has a little bit more modern feel, but exactly. So
all right. So these are considerations that you're going to bring into play when you're determining what lighting schemes you want to design for the boat. And when I talk about lighting schemes, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about just overall? Or are we talking about how when you go to a switch, a certain number of lights come on that create a certain mood?
Yeah, so when I do my lighting package, there's a couple different components. Typically, I do the lighting plan. I do a set of specs. So, for example, whatever fixtures, whatever rope lighting, whatever decorative fixtures are selected, I give a spec sheet to the client or to the captain and to the electrician as well. So everybody has a copy of what we're going to be using. And then we're also looking at circuitry. So how do we want that lighting to come on? How do we want that lighting to, if that lighting is going to be dimmable, what location it's going to be switched from. For example, if you have in the salon, you have a dining room fixture and you have a rope lighting that's underneath your woodwork and maybe up in your, in your air plantum or something like that. And you want that dimmable and you want that to be your evening kind of mood, then you would maybe put your dining room fixture and your sconces on that same circuit. Some people put it separately. It's really personally like a personal decision. And what I like to do is make a suggestion for the client or make a suggestion in the lighting plan. And I say, do you approve this? This is what I would do. And sometimes I have the client say, you know what, I want to have them all separate. But when you do tie them up together, it creates a mood and it's like creating almost like a scene. So they come into the boat in the evening and they're able to turn on with one switch several different types of light, even a lamp maybe, and it creates a mood.
So let me dig into that for just one quick second, Karen, if you don't mind. So let's say we've got a boat that's, say it's 15 years old and the lighting system in there is all working well, but we want to modernize and update. And everybody knows LED is the thing to do and the way to go now. Can we just go into the boat and replace all the bulbs with LED bulbs and maintain the same functionality that we've always had?
Sometimes you can. In that case, I would call Brandi or somebody from her organization, from Apollo, and they would come out to the boat and they would make a recommendation.
Okay. So sometimes we could just change out the bulbs and still have full dimmability, but is that always the case?
No. So like especially when switching over to LED, you have you may have to integrate a new LED dimming module, because even though they were dimming before, that switch is now needs to speak to an LED compatible dimming module.
So it's a balanced system that was there before.
Correct. So you have, you have a different different type of lighting. There's different loads. So on the lowest dimming side, you might see some flickering if you don't switch over, or you didn't know to do such a thing. So in that case, then you would have to switch out your dimming module from the old halogen style to the newer updated LED.
Okay, so it's not just as simple as changing a bulb sometimes.
Correct.
Sometimes if we want to maintain the full functionality, we have to go a little bit deeper, change the bulb and the controlling system behind it.
That's correct.
As well.
Mm-hmm.
But we can typically keep the same switches and things like that.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes.
Okay, all right. I didn't mean to divert your focus there, Karen, but I thought that was important because sometimes people think that they can just change a bulb and maintain the same system as they had it.
No, that's a good clarification.
Okay, all right.
Very good.
So you're talking about building schemes. So when you walk into the dining salon, for example, you may want to choose to hit a switch, and depending upon what the owner's desires are, you may have rope lighting and a chandelier and some indirect lighting in the toe kicks around the room. And he may want to choose to have that dimmable or not dimmable. And all of these different considerations come into play when you're talking about the look that you want to build and the design that you have to make it all work with.
Right.
Brandi, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
Yes. And so all of that would be designated on an architectural lighting plan.
Okay.
That would actually have switch locations, the type of light fixtures on the
So
legends.
this is an example of a plan that you would draw for your client after you've spoken with him as to what he wants it to look like ultimately. And then this you can give to Apollo to go ahead and build the system out for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And they'll indicate exactly what kind of fixtures are needed, what sort of dimmable modules have to be replaced or can be maintained. And so when they look at something like this, do they have the option of a cheap, middle road, expensive? Is it always going to be expensive? Is it always going to be cheap? What do you advise them when they say to you, well, all right, what's it going to cost me, Karen?
Well, typically, again, like when I go into the boat initially to determine what type of work is going to be done. Are they just looking to upgrade the lighting or to do the ceiling? Or are they looking to do a complete refit? When I have the lighting plans drawn up, I like to give them a couple different options as far as cost. So then I would turn the lighting plans over to Apollo, and then they would make a couple different recommendations as to how to approach it.
Okay.
They would go and physically inspect the existing control system, what needs to be done as far as the dimming modules, the wiring, any other upgrades that's underneath the ceiling that I can't see. So I'm dealing with more of the aesthetic and some of the technical, but they are really the ones that do the deep technical and the wiring and, all of those kind of components. So we work together as a team.
So there's a consideration, I think, in all of this as to whether you're going to use DC or AC electricity to power these lights as well, correct?
Yes.
So there may have been 110 volt lighting or AC power in the boat that provided the light, but with the new system, would it always be the same, or do we sometimes actually have to change the voltage?
That depends, of course, again, on what the captain, the owner, the engineer spec out. They'll usually give me the input as far as what they want to do.
Okay.
So if they're already on a low voltage system, typically because when we're getting involved with the refits, the decorative lighting, so the sconces, the dining room fixture, the flush mounts, for example, or even the self switch lamps will be more of a residential type fixture, which is the 110 fixture.
So that's going to be an AC fixture like you could buy at Home Depot, for example.
Well, not exactly. Yes, something like that. So then you're going to have two sets of power. So you're going to have the 110 for the decorative fixtures, and you're going to have the low voltage of the existing system. So then you're going to need something like a converter, which Apollo would come in. And again, they would look at all of the different components behind the scenes, the technical equipment that's needed to actually make the lighting design work.
Okay.
And they'll make recommendations and, of course, give the estimate based on that.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So I think it has probably a lot to do with the input you get from the broker as to whether he left the guy any money to do his refits or not, right?
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So we start with an idea, a concept, as to what are we trying to accomplish. Do we just want to change a couple of bulbs, or do we want to change the entire mood of the boat? Do we want to bring the boat into a relaxing, warm and inviting ambiance? Or some people want a more austere, modern look about their boat, more of a Miami Beach condominium look, if you will. So the first considerations that you would take in would be, what mood are they trying to create? And then how far we want to go with the different system. And then we have to go into the engineering side of it.
Yes.
So with the engineering side of it, Brandi, where are most of the lights made? Are they made in America, or do we bring them in from other countries? Are they mostly foreign built?
Some of them are American made, but
Okay.
many of them are, are not, and they
Okay.
are out of Italy or
Okay.
Greece.
Yeah, I think
UK,
Italy's pretty well known
but
for lighting fixtures. I think a lot of people are accustomed to the different Italian brands.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So when we're taking that into consideration, is sourcing that stuff difficult, or is it generally pretty available?
Generally speaking, I mean, it's pretty available. There are some things that are some fixtures that are more popular that we tend to stock. But then there's some others that, may have to be ordered. And depending on the lead time, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 8 weeks. It just kind of depends on the actual fixture that you're actually there, or the customer's wanting to order.
Okay.
But we do try to generally stock a lot here, and make sure things are, readily available, because everybody wants everything yesterday.
Of course they do, and they want it for half price too. So what's probably the biggest consideration that you run into when someone wants to redesign a lighting scheme in the boat? What's the biggest challenge that you usually run into?
If they have existing holes and trying to find something, because sometimes these fixtures are an odd size because they are much older and things have come, around and maybe are a different size and not available in that size anymore. So they may have to generally open the hole. So that's something that may want to take into consideration. If they're not redoing the headliner. Budget is always, something to take into consideration.
Well, it's always an important consideration in everything.
I mean, we generally like to try and give two options, because a lot of times they think they want to do this huge big refit and spend all this money, but not really knowing what that cost is going to involve. And then it's quoted and then they're like, oh my goodness. So then so out of the gate, it's always nice to say, okay, well, if you have existing fixtures that you can use and you just want to upgrade the bulb, this is the cost involved. Or if you want to take it a step further and, redo all new fixtures, maybe, they have old round and want to go to a more modern feel, like a square fixture that, and it would be a totally new fixture. That would generally be a little bit more money and cost involved.
Are there any adapters available for any of this, from old popular style fixtures to newer fixtures, or is it typically you have to replace the entire thing?
No, everybody's tried to keep it the same in terms of the hole size, but there are some older styles that are, especially with like courtesy lights.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a lot of times there were much bigger holes, and now they're much smaller.
Okay.
So we kind of run into some issues
with carpentry.
There.
Yeah, you run into carpentry or fiberglass issues where you've got to fill holes or finish surfaces and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So
you have
the
that
expense
cost.
of the light is significantly less, and the expense of putting it in is significantly more.
Right, correct.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wonder if you could give us a little bit more understanding of is light temperature and color.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked briefly about this. How do they do that? Do they do it through different voltage, or they do it through, how is it done?
Well, most of the LEDs are low voltage, especially in the downlights.
Okay.
In courtesy lighting, that's all going to be generally 10 to 30 volt. They usually have a range 10 to 40, 10 to 30 volt DC.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes if they don't have low voltage already in place, we are using step-down transformers.
Okay.
If they don't want to convert anything over, which is not out of the ordinary at all. Generally speaking either. So, and then color temperature, as Karen mentioned, a lot of the interior, we have a lot of people coming here and they think they want that cool white, and then they see it, on a display and they're like, maybe I don't want that. Especially like she said with the wood tones inside, something that is so stark and cool white can make your wood in your boat, and especially on the inside where you're, spending some quality time and you have that ambiance that you want, or having a dinner party, and it makes your wood, this beautiful wood that you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, look ugly almost.
Or to choose a blue light and put it over an area where it might be dining on the aft deck, and suddenly realize that all of your guests look like they're very sick and the food doesn't look very appetizing.
Exactly. Right.
So these are all part of your considerations when you do your design scheme.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. Interesting.
I have been on many boats that have done LED conversions that weren't done through, a person that really knew what they were looking at. And you see a lot of times boats installed with the wrong color lighting, or they have mixtures of different colors. So they have some of the cooler LEDs mixed with warms. They have, it's crazy. So
well, that's why it's critically important to bring an expert in. Yeah. Sometimes people think, oh, I don't want to spend the money to do that. But the reality is that the value is there, because the end product is going to be something that's much more desirable. So to do it once and do it right is quite often cheaper than to do it twice and doing it wrong the first time.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Well, thanks, ladies, very much. I think you've given us a lot of great insight in the regard of new lighting styles, new lighting techniques, and things to keep in mind when we're talking about retrofitting or designing a scheme for a new boat. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh.
Cut.
In typical Between Two Yetis fashion, we've tripped, fallen.
You okay?
Did we do all right?
Yeah. How long?
Maritime arbitration has been around for hundreds of years. Now we have a new forum to solve our disputes. The IYBA has created the International Yacht Arbitration Council to solve our disagreements. We have experienced maritime attorneys and yacht brokers to serve on our panels, people who know the law, who know boats, and who know the yacht business. IYAC arbitration can handle yacht claims, contract, purchase, and commission disputes privately, quickly, and less costly than going to court. Sometimes disputes happen, and when they do, the IYAC is here to help you solve them.
Take 5 and we're live.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. So I decided to get out of the sun on this beautiful sunny day. We're sitting under this awning at Yacht. I am with John Valence of JV Connectivity, and we're going to kind of bounce off of yesterday's discussion with VSAT technology. Today we're going to be talking about cellular. So John, could you explain to me about how that differs from VSAT a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. So cellular is a complement to VSAT. What we've noticed is when we have clients within cell range, they'll prefer to connect to cellular because it's much, much faster compared to VSAT. So when you have a vessel that has a full crew and guests on board, normally they want the faster connectivity.
Of course.
So we're here to help with that.
Okay. So how does cellular work, and when would you use cellular versus using VSAT?
So you're going to use cellular when you're coastline, right? So when you're within range of the cell towers, you're going to be able to pick up that signal, and you're going to be on cellular just because it is faster. VSAT, obviously, you can use that everywhere, right? And cellular, you can't. So then, therefore, a VSAT is a necessity to stay connected while you're traveling across the Atlantic or going down to remote areas where there is no cellular connection whatsoever.
Okay, so then cellular comes into play, and then how is that connected? Through a SIM card, or how does that work?
So great question. So on all these vessels, you have a PEP wave or a cellular router device. And you actually insert the SIM card into that router. So with that being said, you'll insert the SIM card into the router. That client will then connect off of cellular. And what we'll do is we'll come in by supplying the necessary SIM cards based off of our client's itinerary. So for instance, they're here in South Florida. They're connected to one of the major operators here. They go over to the Bahamas or the Caribbean. We're supplying those SIM cards to keep them connected.
Okay, so every different destination that a client would have, they would need a different SIM card?
Yeah, so think of it regionally. So you have the operators here in the U.S., the big three, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon we work with. When we go to the Bahamas, we also work with a major operator over there called Alive. And then we work with the operators in the Caribbean, which is Digicel and Flow, as well as the Mediterranean with Orange and Vodafone.
Okay, so when a client comes to you, you provide them with, let's say, a book of different SIM cards that they would use depending on their destinations? Okay.
Essentially, yeah. So in order to get the fastest connectivity, it is important to use a SIM card that is from the native network, as we call it.
Of course.
That's going to give them the fastest response times. It's going to give them the fastest performance. And that's why, we look at giving them, and we actually give them a book of SIMs. So based off of where they're going, we'll use those SIMs to connect to.
Okay.
And with the agreements that we have with the operators, they're not SIMs that you would normally be able to buy if you went yourself to an AT&T store or a T-Mobile store.
Okay.
Just because of how much data these vessels use, right?
Sure.
We have clients that are consuming, over a terabyte a month of data on a regular basis. And unfortunately, a $100 SIM card from T-Mobile, it's not going to allow you to do that type of usage.
Okay.
So
I shouldn't take out my phone and have you put a new SIM card in?
No. Keep the SIM in your phone. That's what you're doing is right. But when we're talking about routers and powering vessels with internet, it's really important that you have a contract behind that SIM that is meant for that type of usage. And then therefore, they'll have the best possible experience without having to constantly take a SIM out, put one back in after you reach your small data cap.
Sure. Okay. So now when it comes to changing out the SIM cards, let's say a client arrives in the Bahamas, will they need to change it to a different SIM card, or how does that work?
So great question. So for them to have the best possible performance, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And all the routers that we work with, they have multiple SIM slots, right? So they can just log into their router, they can go from SIM A to SIM B, and then boom, they're good to go with Bahamas data.
Okay.
So they don't have to physically take it out every single time. They would just log into the device, pick which network they want to use, and go from there.
Okay. Now I've heard of people having astronomical bills after using data out of range. Does this kind of solve that problem?
Absolutely, it does.
Okay.
So what you're talking about is roaming, right? So if you're taking your AT&T or Verizon phone or SIM, and now you're using that in the Bahamas, you're opening yourself up for very, very high roaming costs.
Okay.
With ours, we use local SIMs, per region, and that eliminates that pain point. What's more important there, though, is the performance is going to be much, much better when you use a local SIM, because your traffic on the actual operator's network is going to be prioritized over roaming traffic. Okay. So that's why we go and obviously give out sims per region, just so our clients can have the best possible performance.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm really learning a lot today.
It's complex. It's complex. This is a basic overview, but there's a lot that goes into this.
Sure.
We know the equipment like the back of our minds. So when it comes down to support, if you call a cell phone operator and you say, hey, T-Mobile, I need help with my PEP wave, they're not going to be able to support that because they don't know what it is, right?
Okay.
They're used to working with phones and tablets. We're used to working with these PEP wave devices.
Sure.
And really our use case. So we can support those sims. We have higher level agreements with the operator. So if you do run into an issue, we have a higher escalation point, which we can resolve those problems much faster compared to calling in yourself.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you for explaining all of that to me. It really all does make sense.
Okay, good.
Thank you. And Paul, we're going to throw it back to you now.
See you, Paul. Bye, Heather.
For most of us, working with our passion is nothing more than a dream. But for Edward Cattell, it's life.
When I was growing up in the 1960s, when I was riding my bicycle home every day to and from school, I would collect bottles. And the bottles were worth 5, 10, 15 cents or whatever. I'd collect them. I saved up enough bottles to buy a little boat. So that was my first boat. The kids in the neighborhood, we all loved to fish. We'd ride our bikes to the nearest marina or docks. We'd fish all day long. We loved it, we loved it, we loved it.
In high school, Ed started catching his own lobsters and selling them by the side of the road. His childhood dream of one day making a living at sea was becoming a reality.
My parents really didn't want me to go that way. They wanted me to become a businessman. And finally, they gave in, and I got an opportunity.
Ed started out as a young mate at Pentropic. Little did he know that 12 years later, he would become the captain of the whole operation.
They've supported me and encouraged me and mentored me, and it's been a great experience. I get the best job in the company, they always tell me, which is true.
After a lifetime at sea, Ed still enjoys every moment of the job. And even in his spare time, he loves spending his days on the water. For Ed, the Cool Cat is more than a boat. She's family.
With Zack Savage from Underwater Lighting at LMC, where we've been spending our morning, and we're going to learn a little bit about more about underwater lights. So, Zack, we got something behind us that I think is a little bit unusual. Tell me about what we're looking at.
Absolutely. This is actually a few years old Hargrave that has never had underwater lights on it before. So as you can see, there's no holes in the hull. So what we're going to do on this boat is basically have to drill new holes. If it's cored, we have to seal them, and then obviously put the lights in straight away. This differs from normal boats that we work on because they normally have underwater lights positioned in the exact right way, and that's just a case of removing and placing them in. So this boat is a unique challenge, but it's also exciting because we get to position the lights exactly where they're going to be most beneficial, and then the owners are going to have beautiful lights to light up the water.
So let's back the boat up just a little bit. This is unusual in this day and age to not have an underwater light in the boat already, especially on a boat that's a couple of years old. I've been around the industry for quite some time, and I remember when bringing underwater lights in was all the rage. It was the new thing. And we had a lot of different things to consider. So give me a little background or a little history on where did we start with underwater lights, when did that start, and what were the technologies that were available when they first came to market?
Absolutely. Underwater lights basically started around 1991. Peter Urquhart of Underwater Lights Limited, who I work with, put the first light on a boat then. It was a large super yacht, and that's really where the technology was started on the larger boat side. He developed the technology to bring these 150 watt HID lamps, which generate a fair amount of heat, into a contained housing that was suitable and approved for superyacht use. Over the years, and a decade or so later, the technology then became on fishing boats. It was the must-have accessory for sport fishers all around the world.
Well, that was my area. I was in the sport fishing world. And one of the things that the guys started to do was to sword fish at night.
Absolutely.
And they liked to have a light in the bottom of the boat because they felt like it attracted the fish, and it actually did. So we had I guess those were HID lights or halogen lights back in those days, weren't they?
Back in those days, they also developed a smaller light which used a xenon bulb, which was a lot lower wattage and could run off the DC power, which people, depending on who you ask, would prefer to use. So there were a couple of different sizes using that technology. So in the early 2000s, the craze really took off. And all those boats started to use them. And then with the advent or introduction of LED around 2005, 2006, meaning smaller lights with good output in LED at a good price, meant that it was available to all sizes of boats and every type of customer.
So we actually learned a little bit earlier in the day today about light emitting diodes and the way we've got a lot of different varieties of LED light available. But backing up to the earlier days, one of the things that I remember is when guys would put lights in the transom of the boat, they had to be very careful about not running the lights while the boat was up on a plane.
Absolutely.
Because they developed a lot of heat, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they?
The bulb technology absolutely generated a huge amount of heat, and the technology wasn't there for thermal protection back then. So if the boat lights were left on when the boat was out of the water like this, or if you're going along, especially on a sportfish boat with the transom exposed, the lights on, and when the water came back, the glass lens could potentially crack. And that did happen back then, which is why LED was kind of was so well received back then, because the perception is they don't generate a huge amount of heat, which technically isn't true. But they all had thermal cutouts as well, so they could easily protect themselves. So the technology was seen as a way forward. It was very expensive back in the early days, but a lot of people adopted it very, very quickly.
Well, LED lighting has taken on, it's taken over the world. I mean, we've got LED lighting pretty much everywhere we look. Automobile industry is all LED. Aviation industry is switching all over to LED. In your home, everybody's buying LED bulbs now. You've got courtesy lights, you've got direct lights, you've got white lights, you've got neutral lights, you've got yellow or softer lighting, you've got a variety of different things. So in the yachting industry, when we're talking about putting in underwater lights, which you guys have a unique distinction. Every time somebody talks about an underwater light, they're talking about your company.
Pretty much,
so that's a pretty good idea. It's kind of like the Kleenex of lighting.
Absolutely.
Which makes a ton of sense. So we're going to do an application of underwater lighting in a boat like this 106 Hargrave. What are the things that we're going to consider first?
Well, because this is a virgin hull, we kind of want to...
Let's take a peek at what we got.
Absolutely. So because this is a virgin hull, we're going to want to decide first what the customer wants. With LED, we have so many more options nowadays. You can have your white, your blue. You can have white and blue in the same fixture. You can have color change. You can pretty much have anything you want.
So we've got RGB, or we get the full scale, correct?
RGBW is what we provide, which is red, green, blue, and white, because everyone wants still that white light. And then yes, you can have individual colors, dual colors, and really just what the customer wants.
The whole spectrum of the rainbow.
Absolutely. Now, popular these days is color change. It's probably about 70% of what we sell, which just shows the trend in the industry. Back in 2005, 2010, it was white was predominant, and from then till about a year or so ago, it was blue. Everybody had to have blue. But now it's a mixture of everything, but color change is really starting to dominate, because why have one color when you can have hundreds?
Sure.
And the benefit of that is when you're going to different areas of the world, taking your boat to the Bahamas, up to New York, or wherever you want to go, the quality of the water will react differently to different colors. So in the Bahamas, white looks beautiful. Up in New Jersey, white will turn brown really quick. I mean,
it makes the water look terrible.
Terrible, but green in those waters looks unbelievable.
Okay.
And in fact, my favorite color right now is a teal. So it's 100% blue, 50% green, and that just
sounds
looks
like a Miami Dolphins fan to me.
I'll take it.
Okay. So, and in the Mediterranean, what do you see?
In the Mediterranean, it's normally blue or white is kind of the predominant thing.
Because of the clarity of the water.
Clarity of the water, and Americans, in my opinion and experience, like to adopt these technologies first as well.
Sure.
So whilst color change is still in Europe, it's just not on the same scale that we have here.
I understand.
I get a lot of pushback on some people saying color change is very garish, very Miami, a little over the top, but it can be as crazy or as subtle as you want it to be. I have a customer who likes blue, that's all he wants. So we turn the lights on blue, and over half an hour it changes to a very light blue and then back down.
Okay.
So you don't notice or perceive the change, but it's there, and that's just what
So
he
you can
wants.
work in one color spectrum and then refine it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So with computer controlling on these, you can do virtually anything you want, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. We can customize the light show to colors for the Miami Dolphins, to
Right.
holidays, Valentine's, Christmas themes. And
Okay.
again, with individual control over each light, we can do scenes that go back and forward, which we call the Night Rider, which, you know,
Okay.
anyone old enough to remember that great TV series will understand. Kit on the back of your boat
I'm
is an
old enough,
attraction.
yes.
Or we can go as garish and crazy as you want. So it really
Okay.
is down to personal preference.
Okay.
So when you explain this to customers now, that it can be very subtle or it can be crazy, a lot of people decide to opt for the color change.
Sure, okay. So when we're considering a transom application here for this boat with a set of underwater lights, and the owner is going to start by giving you his desires. He's going to give you an idea as to what his color ranges are going to be, whether they're specific or he wants full control. And then the other thing he's probably going to share with you is going to be where is he going to use his boat and how does he use his boat?
Absolutely.
Is he a 45-year-old bachelor who wants to be entertaining in Miami and have boom boom music going all the time, or is it a family situation where they're going to have the grandkids on board and they're going to have National Geographic behind their boat every night while they're anchored up at Staniel Key?
Absolutely.
So how would we consider putting our lighting in here?
As you just said, all those factors need to be the questions asked. What their expectations are, where they're going to use the boat is a real key. And what really I try and ask as well, what their experience with underwater lights are. Underwater lights come in a couple of different varieties, either surface mount or through hole.
Okay.
The difference being with a surface mount, the entire light is on the outside of the boat with a very small wire going through.
Okay.
And a through hole is a larger hole, anywhere from 2.5 to 4 inches, which accommodates the light and which can then be serviced from inside the boat.
So the surface mount gives you a smaller hull penetration,
Absolutely.
but you have to take the boat out of the water or use a diver to do service on it.
Absolutely. The pros of those are they are less expensive, easier to install, smaller hole in the boat.
Okay.
Cons are, if there ever is an issue, you've got to work that around your haul out schedule or schedule an expensive haul out to fix.
Okay.
And they cannot be as bright as well as the traditional through hole styles.
Okay.
So it's a cost benefit versus the output. If the owner comes to me and says, I want the brightest lights in the world, they can't have surface mounts.
Okay.
A lot of people I talk with as well, I much prefer the surface mount. This is the people who've not really done lights before because they don't want to drill large holes in their boat.
Right.
But when you explain to them there are 15 penetrations right here that are perfectly safe and probably another 20 underneath the boat, if it's done correctly by a professional, you'll never have an issue. So a larger hole, smaller hole, so long as it's done correct, will be absolutely fine.
Okay.
And the final benefit on the through holes is that pretty much all the through holes you can buy from any company have to be approved by Lloyd's and ABS because it's a through hole penetration which acts as a water barrier.
So you have class considerations and you guys comply with those class considerations.
We've always complied. Every single one of our lights has class, but with surface mount lights that you can go and buy from West Marine, there is no need for them to have those class considerations.
Sure.
So maybe maybe they're not built to the same standards that the through hole lights are.
Yeah, there aren't too many ABS class center consoles out there.
Well, there really aren't, and that's really where those surface mount lights exist. They should be on trailer boats that can be pulled out and in all the time.
Okay.
On something like this, and trust me, I've seen many surface mounts put on boats of this size, and in my mind it's a mistake because a downtime for a through hole light, if you were to buy one of our lights and you had an issue, you could take the insert out, send it to us for repair, and we'd have it back in 48 hours. With a surface mount, you're talking either maybe 6 to 12 months before you come out to actually get it repaired.
So that brings an interesting question to mind. If we install the housing on the transom of the boat, for example, and we have our LED light insert that is in that housing and it's threaded in place, if a new technology, or let's say I own the boat and I only wanted a blue spectrum of light, but I sell the boat to you and you decide you want the full 256 color range, can we take that insert out, leaving the housing in place, and modify or update or replace it?
Now, I'll be very careful with this answer because with our company, Underwater Lights, yes, you can.
Okay.
Every single light we've ever made can be repaired, replaced, or upgraded.
Okay, that makes a big difference.
I did a boat over here last year. It was 130 foot. Lights were installed in 1997, and all we did is pulled out the bulbs and put color change LEDs straight in.
Okay.
With other companies, they change their housing design every time there's a slight new light comes out. So their inserts from 5 years ago won't fit what's coming out now. We make a very conscious effort that we perfected basically the housing, and that we leave that. We don't change that.
Okay.
And we just change the technology, it becomes available.
So that's one of the big differences between underwater lighting and maybe some of the other companies, that you maintain consistency in your housings.
Absolutely, and if any of the brokers who may be watching this do have, older lights on the boat, before ripping them out or condemning them, give us a call first, because we may be able to do it at the dock and just put in the new stuff, and also just clean everything up and just make sure everything's good to go.
Okay. Well, speaking of cleaning everything up, one of the things that we see quite often is there'll be growth on the outside of the housing or growth on the outside of lens.
Yep.
And of course, that deteriorates the ability for the light to produce the effect that we're looking for. There's a boat right over here that has some lights in it. Can you give us a little insight as to what these lights are?
Absolutely. I mean, without naming companies, these are actually a slightly older unit, LED still, but from a few years ago. And as you can see, they've got quite a few on the back of the boat. And that was from a throwback from the older LED series.
Okay.
You had to do more to do the same kind
Let's
of
let
effects.
our cameraman zoom in just a little bit so he can see and show the audience what we're talking about with the older technology of lights. So as you're saying, we've got several lights here in order to produce the effect that we're looking for.
Exactly, and again, I don't want to bash the competition.
No, of course
really
not.
That much.
Of course not.
But with those type of lights, it's going to create a nice effect out the back.
Okay.
But with what we're going to do on this boat with our new QTS series of light, I mean, in the Bahamas, the lights we're going to put on here are going to go out 100, 150 feet.
Wow.
And that's kind of what we look for as a standard. With the color change, it's just going to, like I said, depending on the color you're on at a particular time and where you are, it's just going to look absolutely sensational.
So what you're saying is that the technology has advanced to a degree that we can use fewer lights to provide the same effect, which, if we're talking about fewer hull penetrations, that's got to make everybody feel a little bit better.
Absolutely.
We've got the newest technology. We're able to have a brighter light, a full range of colors. So it gets better and better every day.
Absolutely. I mean, back in the old days in 2005, 2006, a light was produced called the RFB 108, if you remember that, Lee, from Ocean LED, and that was 108 watts and about 1100 lumens.
Okay.
We now produce a light that's roughly the same wattage and is 25,000 lumens.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a 25-fold increase over the last 15 years.
Okay.
But LED technology gets better and better every day. The output gets better and it becomes less expensive as well.
Right. So I've seen some of the LED lights like these that are behind us on this boat, where when it's turned off and you look at it, you're basically looking at a circuit board with light emitting diodes on it. I've also seen other ones that when you look at the light, you see a lens and it appears that the circuit board is back behind it.
Yes.
Are these different ways of creating your light? And tell me about that a little bit.
The way, when it has a lens in front of the LED, that's a slightly older way of what's called collimating the LED.
Okay.
The idea is that light comes out from the LED at all angles, and the collimator, very much like a reflector in a halogen overhead light, focuses it forward rather than out the sides.
Okay.
With the latest LEDs, you can really get away with not having to do that by pushing the circuit board close to the lens.
Okay.
Because with underwater lights now, because they're so powerful, they project far enough, but now you want the spread. So in the early days, you took what limited power you have and pushed it in a direction that was useful. Now we have so much power available, we now want to spread it out. So you, being on a sport fish, you must have looked over the side and seen those dark triangles between each light.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that, with the new lights that have a 140-degree beam, that can be pretty much eliminated just by putting 4 lights on this boat.
So you have a full range of light instead of having any gaps in there.
Exactly. So now it's like a wash of light rather than individual jets of light.
Okay. All right. So the technology has advanced pretty significantly, starting with the old days of halogen and going up into xenon for the brightness. We've eliminated our temperature issues. We've come up with different ways of making installations where we can do surface mount or hull penetration. Is there anything that you guys are thinking about is next? What's new? I know it's going to fit in one of your housings.
Well, it's going to fit in one of our housings. Actually, the next thing we've done or already started is we're now changing the material that we're making all of our housings out now to titanium.
Oh, okay.
So the idea behind that is everything at the beginning in 91 was made out of 316 stainless.
Sure.
Then it moved to naval bronze, which everybody uses.
Right.
But now we're going to move to titanium because it's a lot stronger. We want the housings we're selling now to last 50 years. With just the ability to upgrade. Sorry, I was going to wipe my eye real quick.
No worries.
And also, seems to be a huge issue, not around Florida and such, but when boats are moored up, galvanic corrosion seems to be more of an issue with free voltage in the water, which attacks all of the components on the boat. Using titanium, which is still bonded to the system, will ensure the life of the housing, even if it's not down to your issue, it's the boat next door leaking voltage. So we've already made the change to titanium on the QTS. It will be moving to the QT80. And then our larger lights will be sometime next year. When we
so just like any other hull penetration, we don't just drill a hole and shove a light in there and wire it up to the battery and let her go.
Yeah.
We got to make sure that we've got, since it's a metallic housing, we've got to worry about electrolysis. We've got to make sure that she's incorporated into the bonding system. So it's not something that the weekend warrior is really going to do unless he's pretty well experienced. You want to bring in a professional.
You want to bring in a professional. I mean, not just getting the lights installed, like you said, to the bonding system. If you do have a cored boat, you want to make sure that you take out a piece of the coring and then fill it with a hard epoxy, just so when you clamp down the two together, you don't want to be at that hole to crush.
Right.
So that could lead to issues of water seepage or anything. But it's the same with any through hole on the boat. You want to make sure it's done correctly. And also, one thing that we did mention, I think a little earlier, maintenance. So the lens issues, we recommend prop speeding on the outside of the metal, light speed on the front. And also we recommend in our manual every 18 months, just go down there, unscrew it, pull it out, lube it up with some dielectric and put it back.
Okay.
So because if you haven't touched light for 20 years, in a boat, in a wet area like this, it's, you're going to have to put a bit of elbow grease into it.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Preventative maintenance and regular maintenance, just like your diver, is definitely what we'd recommend.
Well, I think in a matter of a couple of minutes, we've gotten a pretty good sense of where underwater lighting started, what it was all about early in the game, and where we are today. I think it's been an interesting segment. Zach, thanks so much for giving us the time here at LMC. There's a lot of interesting stuff to do in the underwater lighting realm. And if you need something, you need some questions answered, I'm sure folks will have your contact information from the website. We're happy to get together with you and find out what they need to know.
Absolutely. I mean, I just hope that people, there are so many options available when it comes to underwater lighting. If any of your customers have a question, just tell them to give me a call. I've been doing this for 20 years now. That makes me feel very old.
Not bad for a guy who's 32 years old.
35.
Thanks very much, folks. Well, that's been an interesting and informative morning. I got to tell you, I'm really appreciative, Heather, of the folks here at LMC. They've been great hosts. They've really rolled out the red carpet for us and given us a lot of access to the facilities. A ton of great subcontractors that do wonderful things. We've gone over a variety of different things already this week, and there's 2 more days to go. What do you think? How are you enjoying it so far?
It's been a great week. Like I said, I've been around the marine industry growing up in South Florida, but I've never really seen this professional side of it, and the mechanical, the engineering, everything that goes into a yacht, a boat, a vessel. I've just experienced, cruising down the intercoastal, going fishing, hanging out at the sandbar, but I never realized what goes in to giving me that experience. So it's been really cool to learn the background of it, getting in the engine room and seeing all the ins and outs of a boat.
It's not someplace that everybody gets to go. You're absolutely right.
That's
and
right.
when we up the level of professionalism, when we up the level of knowledge, it allows the brokerage community to provide a more seamless experience to their clients, and then they make it look easy. And that's the sign of a professional, is how to take a tough job and make it look easy.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we've got quite a few more things to go over this week. We've got Thursday and Friday to go. I've enjoyed being out here in the field. I know you've been hogging up the sunshine for the last couple of days.
I've enjoyed it.
I'm sure you have. But I'll keep my duties in the studio. I'll be back there tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So make sure you let your friends know, let the other professionals in the industry know that we've got a ton more good stuff to learn about. at Yacht Engineering Week from IYBA. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thanks for being here today.
See you then.
Bye, y'all.
Yacht Engineering Week has been brought to you by Robert Allen Law, Pantropic Power CAT, MPI Professionals, KVH, Northern Lights, Seakeeper, Quantum, AMA Solutions, Karen Lynn Interior Design, Apollo Lighting, Underwater Lights Limited. Our connection has been provided by JV Connectivity, and our timekeepers have been Lauderdale Marine Centre.